Okay, so riddle me this. We certainly don't have to buy new material if we reuse these for the most part. However, is there more time spent taking these wheels and these blocks under them all down and taking everything off of here and making sure that the plywood's on there in a reasonable, amount of attachment, and coming up with a solution to put these on the right elevation in here and putting it all back together again versus just making half a dozen components new and putting it all back together correctly? We shall see. It's going to come down to whether or not hardware breaks off / is stripped out / whatever else. So let's see what happens. All right, we got these, I think they were jail cell bars. I didn't build these. I think they went with the rolling jail cell. Although they were around, and I think we used them for Adam's family, so I don't actually know where this stuff came from. It's quite nice. The circular holes that they drilled in the 1x2 just perfectly accept these milled individual wooden sticks that are like 1x1, or they're nominal 1x1, but they're 3/4 by 3/4 actual. And they've got a little rounded corner, but they were nice and straight, and they've stayed straight. And really, this situation, this assembly, I've got the ends of these right on that body line in the stage. And then I went right down. This is a body line on the stage again. You can kind of see it right there. And it's really nice and square. And it has no problem laying nice and flat on the floor for the most part, too. So the little gaps between the circular hole and the square stick, I did my best to get some construction adhesive in there and basically use my finger to create like a radius around each of those. I don't mind the little turds and stuff like that sticking off of there. It'll be something we can quickly sand or just slice with a razor blade to clean anything that's truly, visually obtrusive. And really, most of what you see here is the color difference. So when it gets a fresh spray, especially flat black, you'll never see that glue. But it should help us to make sure it stays really nice and locked up tightly. And I'll just check that before I go get a couple more sticks of glue. And we'll do the same thing to the other piece that I've got. And ultimately, they will be the majority of the gate. I can come down, I can put what looks like a big solid foot across the bottom. I can add a lot of height to this thing without using more of the same type construction. I can put a 6 or an 8-inch tall strip of Luan across the bottom, black hanging down, which is a common sort of like lower molding to a gate like that. And I want to see a hemispherical or a piece of a curve at the top that comes up to meet the other one, where we've written in there with letters, maybe we'll laser cut them or whatever, crunch them and whatnot. So I've got some fundamental sizes on this piece here. This is 96 inches by 24 inches by 5.5, plus the sheet of plywood plus the gap to the floor, so it's roughly 6. I can knock these simple prisms out in CAD real quick. This is 24 by 19 or 18 or so. They're different, and one's maybe an inch taller than the other, but they're around about 48. And so I can mock that up. And then I want to look at this from far away enough to plan on probably the same fundamental shape, but taller. So 18 by 24 by 96. And then, looking at the two of them, I want to roll up with the web between them. And then there's this one. And then I want to roll off and across the top of this gate and then back to, I want the whole thing to sort of fluidly, you don't want to swing up too hard and then have a hard point and turn. You want to basically appreciate these forms from far enough away, which I'll do in CAD to get a sense of the master overall height of the high side into the low, and how to spec out that curve, as well as the curve that I might like to cut in that web that goes between the columns. And I'll just do that planning in CAD, and with it in my head, that what I really like to see here is a 48-inch wide or distance between the columns, because I'm going to use plywood the way you build a skateboard ramp to cut a pair of those web shapes, and because they'll be 48 inches wide and certainly less than 48 inches tall on the high side, I can get 2 sheets of plywood and clamp them together, and the one end of them will have a 3-sided the 3 sides of the existing piece that I need. So just cutting the contour across those pair of sheets, I'll get the 2 that match that go on this one end of this truck, and cutting the other pair that I need off the other end of the pair of sheets will go into this truck, and making 2 simple cross cuts with the jigsaw following a line. Whether they're perfectly the same from one piece to another, the 2 sides will be exactly the same, having been cut together, and it'll all go quickly and easily, and I can make all the same length 2x4 stick and just offset those 2 pieces of plywood from one another, again the way you build a kicker ramp or any kind of skateboard ramp, with some ribs, and then it'll sit upright. And really, I may not even need a top. I will certainly put a top surface on it, and again, maybe we'll make it more of a crown and make it go wider if we want to get frisky, but to start with, I'll get that far, and then we'll keep moving. But I want to feel comfortable in the shapes that I'll cut from those expensive kind of sheets of plywood. I may be able to do it with Luan. I guess if I go around the edges with the cardboard that I used to cap it. I had been thinking about being able to screw into the edge of the plywood, and thereby it needing to be 3/4, but it's an awfully costly thing to make out of 3/4, just for the ability to screw something down, when in reality it can be taped just as easily with gaff. So we may even use Luan to make those webs, which would be really cost effective here, considering these piles of shit carts and blocks were in the basement already. That has some kind of wooden vaginal hole in it that goes out the other side. I'm going to have to ask somebody, drilled a bunch of holes and then filed it all out, or tried to jigsaw. It goes out the other side. I don't know what that was. So these will probably have to be, oh, and I'd like to make a cap here that just covers this up and handles the fact that the top of these suck and everything else. And I'm wondering if I could make a triangle that would sit out here, come through this point, continue up, and then come back and come through this point and over. That could be one triangle. And then a trapezoid that goes from that triangle back down close enough, but probably stays away from this. If I were to make 4 sets of those, it would make this pointed cap that was probably at a hole in it a bit bigger than this, because it could sit just close but no cigar. And I would try to get it to come down. I put a blob of construction adhesive in all 4 corners, about the size of half a ping pong ball. Tablespoon of construction adhesive here, more on top than anywhere else. And then just carefully and leave it to set up. And then that gap at the bottom, I can cut pipe insulation foam into a C shape, and I could set it up glued on one edge to this column, glued on the other edge to the bottom of that cap, and just finish underneath it with what looks like a cove, like sort of molding that's easy enough to miter the edges with a razor blade and rock and roll. I could do that around the base of this thing, or put some 2-inch foam board. Maybe I'll get 1 sheet of 2-inch styrofoam and make a base around this that stands off 2 inches, which gives that a little bit of a step. This ends up with a step and a small shadow detail around the bottom of it, and then spray everything gray. And I don't know why, I just want to stand above it and drip white, like a lot of bird shit all over it, or at least 2 or 3, enough what looks like bird shit to really make it a thing. I don't know why I want bird shit dripped all over Crunch'em. Maybe I won't be able to get away with it. But that's my rough plan for these. Again, we dragged them out of the basement today, and you watched me take the blocks out for the wheels and put something more reasonable in it, bring them down closer to the floor. A couple of the wheels actually make a great example. I don't know if I talked about it in this series, but I have in previous series. We use Rose brand casters, or any kind of commercial, not Harbor Freight, absolutely not Harbor Freight. In fact, that's the opposite. This is where you get something like this. McMaster car type, extremely expensive. Maybe I did talk about them already. They're $50, $60 each anyway. But in talking about them, I didn't have this example until I found it today on one of these trucks. I had better sets of casters everywhere else, but these 2 are these gray ones that we got. And the skin, the overmolded rubber skin on them, comes off and gets driven on. It's just been deformed. It was tight and fit well when we initially purchased them, and in traveling around and deforming under load, they get physically separated from the hub, and then they get ran to one side or the other, or slid sideways or something, and driven and run off like a tire. But then they can't come off. You can see. But we don't want that to happen at all. I don't want to sit in the house and ever sweat any of this heavy, tall set being moved, not under duress, but hastily in a real show setting. And to think that anyone would have a wheel or 2 break down and have a set piece tip over or anything like that, I do not want that. So I was glad to find those too. They'll go right in the garbage can, and we'll continue to root out these bad wheels that get left on trucks and tucked into the archives, and we don't notice them. I got 2 good wheels on there. So we're in good shape, except this one, she got a twist on. I think it's this one. Nope, it's this one. Rocks back and forth, kitty corner, because maybe it's this aspect. Anyway, maybe putting that weight on that end kind of helped it. It's the type of thing that you don't love to give them to have backstage, because in a split second, when someone goes to pass by somebody else, hop by them, and so just the one time, and sort of push off of this, but instead it tips, and someone's set a prop on this, and it's a real show, or it hits something else, it makes a clatter. Things have to be idiot-proof around here. So, was it worth polishing that turd? In the event that it should create a situation like this tipping and whatever? No, not really, no. Another thing that I would have much rather done, because you find out that once you move the caster away so that it can spin and not brush into the back of 1.5-inch lumber, especially on such a narrow aspect like this, basically the widest place that the wheel can touch the floor is a good 4 or 5 inches inside of this overall width. So it's actually quite tippy on the outside. And certainly with an even taller lever than this, like this is enough. That actually is a saving grace that it rolls. So otherwise it would just stall on the floor and you could tip it quite over quite easily. But because they roll, they move away from you unless you're absolutely intending to stop the bottom so that you may tip it. But then over she goes real easy. And that's a product of the way that they're built. Excuse me, the way that they're built. It would be better to end up with what you got at the bottom here, where you've got board flat and the skirt of Luan hanging down, and thereby that triangle of plywood keeps your caster wheel away from the edges. But it only has to be like literally 3/4 of an inch in from the outside plane of this Luan, so that it's about 1/2 inch for safety's sake away from the inside surface. But in this case, to be 1/2 inch off this outside face, that's 2 whole inches inside of the it's more than twice the distance off of those faces. And again, when you've got a really narrow truck, it becomes really tippy for that reason. So if I ever rebuild 2x4x6 trucks or something, or create something like this and I get sick of these, I'll likely build it with different anatomy to combat some of the problems with the tippiness and whatever else. But for what they are, will we be able to make some fairly grand gates with simple shapes? It'll be hopefully it'll be tricky to realize how simple the construction ended up being. I'm going to really screw myself doing this before I actually follow through. But hopefully make a couple boxes, make a couple of these webs, fix up these railings and do a couple things on there. And putting it all together, it'll be sort of more than the sum of its parts, hopefully. Because it's the type of piece that implies so much more. To have, listen, think of any major property. It has to get pretty big and pretty grand before it has sort of this scale gate entry, monumental mason sort of thing. So when you just park that out front, it lends that kind of credence to something that isn't even seen. We don't see the outside facade of Crunch'em. We don't see anything but some boards that stand up in the air, basically finished like what feels like the inside of the place. But this piece with these gates is going to be extremely helpful, as well as the students all dressed in uniforms and some other things, in giving everybody the feeling of being in this, the biggest and most significant architecture in this story, but you don't basically see almost any of it. And that's, and it should feel for what it is. We ought to make a lot of get a lot of value out of doing it this way, because to truly build big features and make a large scale space like that and have it feel right, because you went in for a penny, in for a pound, and started to make components to it, you find out how much stuff you actually have to make. We did Beauty and the Beast, and that bit me. We had a box across the back and some curved stairs off of it, and actually these 2 boxes stood on the floor where the stairs took off from that box, and I put sonotube like these up and made 2 columns there, and it was quite a grand sort of, it looked like where you come down a hallway to a major balcony, and you could come down from the balcony in the other direction on these stairs, and it was cool. But you put it in the context of this big empty space with just the psych and the legs and a couple of people on stage, and it doesn't come close to giving you the feeling of being in a castle, in my opinion. It's one of the biggest bites I would take at my own work is I spent so much time on the West Wing, which was built in over here, and it was a set of stairs that went up to a landing, turned, and went upstairs again and over along the wall, and then came out. And when the rest of the set rolled over here, the Beast and Gaston could go out onto it and battle up here 15 to 20 feet above the house floor, and then fall. Gaston falls, don't let me spoiler alert, but Gaston falls to his death back here on a big crash pad for like pole vaulter, and then it could all, and I was so concerned about attaching to the stage carefully without poking holes in it, attaching to the wall carefully without poking holes right into it, and having it all be safe and secure, and sort of the main backdrop to the castle itself just became I saw it when we were building it. I knew it. It isn't like in retrospect I realize now. I always kind of was bummed with what we were able to do with it, because there just isn't enough of me to go around, or enough hands at to really dig in and go hard on more than one thing. And so I've tried since then to get better at applying the same sort of, don't leave anything behind, leave nothing behind. These gates, I guess, to circle back, have been something that I've been thinking about, because I wanted to sort of make them appear mostly out of things from downstairs, or, supplemented by cheap materials. And for all of that thinking and experience that I have in this together, we'll do something quick and simple, hopefully, and it'll have a massive effect on the overall production value of the show. And I apologize for breaking my arm off, patting myself on the back there maybe, but my point is really more about realize that this is an efficiency game. The arts in general don't have a lot of time or money, that people can put into them. And what I like most about theater is that it has to be so truly cheap. Even we spend thousands of dollars on materials for the show, but that's basically barely anything anymore these days. But sometimes making something truly significant out of utter garbage is where I'm the most rewarded on this show. I know it sounds salty about polishing these turds, but I hope to leverage all the time and effort I've been thinking about this, and let me know. I'll check up with you. I'll tell you how I feel about it when we're. Listen, you could skip right to the beginning or to the end of this video right now. You don't even have to wait. But that's my hope. Let's see if it happens. Okay, so Morty's going to help, I guess. This is what I'm thinking about. These are the fundamental shapes and sizes that I've got. On the left is the lower box and the truck, and what I can make for a taller box next to it, and what I can make for, in fact, when you set these the same distance from the end as they are from the edges, the long sides, I don't even have 48 inches in here. It's like 40 or something. So I'll be able to get 4 bulkhead shapes like that out of 2 sheets of plywood, no problem. And then we'll just in this case, they're held at 10 inches wide, which looks pretty good to me. And we'll just use some 2x4, to do that. And we'll put some ram board on the top edge of it. The caps I intend to make out of Luan and just sit them together on the edges with tape on the outside, and then I'll glue on the inside and just slip them down over. And I show them they're solids in the cat, but they would have a gap there, and they would just stop on the top. In fact, that's how I set them here. This is some real unprofessional shit. Let me see as far as a CAD model, but I just put them on there and push them down. See how the shapes intersect there at a certain point, and so that would be where they stop. I did start with actually making Luan, but it's so difficult to constrain. I got everything constrained here, vertex to vertex and edge to edge, but trying to stick this inner edge to this inner edge blows this thing up, and it doesn't seem to understand what I'm trying to do. I wanted to just create the 4 lower trapezoids and the 4 upper triangles, and then modify their sizes and watch this thing squeeze up and down kind of visually. But instead, like I say, I end up making just a solid, and because of the way that I built it, it's an extrusion and it's equal, so it doesn't pull to triangles in this point, because these triangles on the sides will be different than the ones on the ends as a factor of this being a longer dimension than that. But we look at these from the side, and it's actually kind of even cooler to see the trapezoid that it makes, I think. I'm not sure. 6 1/2 dozen, I don't know how to decide. I could certainly figure out how to make the triangles. I guess so they're just kind of flat. I don't know that it would be better with a point. I feel like it would be cheaper somehow. So anyway, this is probably the plan. But you can see by making 8 of the same lower shape, 8 of the same upper shapes for these caps, and a couple of simple bulkheads, and putting things together, you can end up with something hopefully sort of cool. So let's see if we can make this thing happen. Then I got to get into figuring out what to do with that gate, but let's go and see if the glue dried, and I never got any final sizes on that thing, so I'm gonna have to get that thing mocked up and into this space and see how much longer the bottom needs to get, what I need to build onto the top of it, and how to get over and attach to this. Another thing with that gate is that you can see the horizontal components that tie the bars together were what were hinged previously, and then you end up with these sticks really spaced out and trying to hold this thing up and hinge it. I'm going to end up probably going to, I want that 3D mouse, wake that screen up. Anyway, I'm going to end up probably going to try and find this model now in space. There it is. I'm going to end up getting to a flat vertical side, and a flat vertical on this thing that stands out probably farther than that to some extent, and then I'll use piano hinge. The piano hinge just has an excellent amount of, it just controls the entire edge, and it helps keep you from, getting out of control and contributing weird loads that make the cantilevered gate kind of wonky out here in the two halves. They don't want to stand up and come together well in that case. And that actually, our biggest problem will likely be in that one truck teetering around in the alignment of the two gates. You'll see that problem, and it'll be as a result of that truck not sitting flat on the floor. So you want to start from the foundation, like in almost everything, and make good quality stuff on the bottom, so that as you build on it and go up and over and out, when you get over there, you're where you want to be in terms of that geometry as a product of all the things that you've done since starting on planet Earth or in the space on the floor. God, this screensaver just irritates me. All right, I think that's enough planning at this point, and we should probably go out and make a couple sketches. I got to throw this shape on paper and show, the major dimensions, and then I'm going to pull some dimensions off of these sides of these forms here so I can sort of mock one up in Luan, and then we got to get out of our PJs and get to the job site. right, I got myself here because the angles are so visually similar, but this is called out as 48 inches, or excuse me, 48 degree angle for these larger components. Both of the triangle and the trapezoid are 48 degrees. That's the actual angle here on this part. But of course, because the miter saw is set out to call out the angle, this is 90 on the saw, and when you set, this is 90 degrees to the fence, and when you pick the angle on the saw to set the blade at, you're actually picking the angle that you're taking out of 90 degrees. So for me to use a speed square, which is set up as a tool to work in conjunction with the miter saw, when I put the speed square on here and I put my point and I pivot to 48, we were there. That's about where the cut ended up being, and we're two degrees shy of, where is it, right here, 2 degrees shy of 50, that's 48. But we really need to be at 42, which is here, which we have to move down the sheet to be able to get back and put a fresh end and be at the correct angle. 42, being the other part of 90 degrees, is the angle that we need to use the speed square to put on our sheet here, and then the rest of our geometry will work out. And you want to catch that early, and it's the reason why we don't go right out to the middle of anything and start at the end. And I'll get this corrected, and I'll make sure that I go to 42 for the rest of these pieces. And I'm hand doing the cross cut because it's deeper than my 10-inch saw will do, and the miter supports at the other end of the spool don't go out nearly long enough, and that saw doesn't throw a shadow line, which makes it, I'd still want to show it in pencil and make sure that I was set to the right place. And so anyway, all things considered, doing it by hand will work just fine. Well, I rocked a little bit of a cleanup. I just had to get it done. I got the desks and chairs out of here finally, since it's second to last day of the fullest work week that we get on the show. I don't know why I tripped through them the entire time. There's just too much going on around here. I should have asked students to open the hole in the stage and get all those desks and chairs off of here. So this is going to be better flow going forward. I've got tomorrow, my parents are in town, and they're probably going to come out and help, I hope. They've never seen the show, but they've dropped in before while I was working on it. They live out of town. My wife, my lovely wife, is in the hospital. We're trying to keep labor at bay so that our firstborn can get fully baked in the oven. And so she's on bed rest, and the show must go on, okay? So I've been here all week. She went in a few days ago, and she's doing well, which is cool. So they came in for the shower, but the shower got canceled because she went into the hospital. So we're going to do a big push down here tomorrow, and I don't want to say hopefully I don't get called away for the birth of my child, but hopefully I don't get called away for the birth of my child. They need more time in there, and we need more time down here. So I was going right along well on these, but I'll probably leave it in. I don't know. I may cut it out. I don't know. I put together, see, you got one longer side, one shorter side. And when I made the first two lower frames, I put the 4 longer pieces and the 4 shorter pieces together. And of course, they made a good looking square. And then I put the tops, I went to make the top, and I had the wrong angle, which I suppose we discussed. So then I got the correct angle, and I was careful and made all the pieces for the top. And then I came to put the top on one of the bottoms, and it was the larger one, and I realized what I had done, but it still seemed to me that I had then cut all of the pieces for both bottoms at the longer size. So I took that set of long ones apart and cut them down to the shorter size, thinking I'll have 4 short ones then and 4 long ones. And then I got into the assembled base, the second assembled base, and realized that was where all the short ones were. So you want to be careful about being so smart that you get too far ahead of yourself here. And you'll notice I made just 2 instead of 4. Because I want to be productive, but I knew that there'd be some tripping hazards here. I had help again today when I'm pulled in and out of things and I'm in a hurry. And of course, my wife and my baby are on my mind. So I didn't want to make 4 complete turds. And so the mistakes that I made were perfectly fixable. And so I just quickly made a couple more pieces off of the strips that I'd already had, and 2 sheets is enough to make 2 sets of those caps and then some. There's the miscut strips right there, and here's the rest of the longer width, and there are 4 layers here, so there's enough pieces in there to make the other 2 big tops. And so I just need to make some strips. These came out too narrow probably. Yeah, so they'll be good for something else. They'll be skirt and stuff like that. We got to make on a few things here, including the hearth. But so I'll knock the pieces for the tops out first thing tomorrow, and then make some strips and make the bottoms and get them that far. Now, you're wondering maybe why I glued the outside instead of gluing the inside. Well, the procedure would have been the same. Try to put things where you want them with tape and then add glue. But trying to sit this thing upside down on that top, or even to put it on like some towels or something so that it sits flat, it would have been a nightmare trying to get the inside glued up when the outside is where we're worried about this thing's appearance. So, and also the outside is where, on account of these angles, all of the seams sit open on the outside. So when I put it together, I put longitudinal tape tightly, and then I allowed the joinery to open up to the outside, allowing room for the glue. And then I just used some stitched like tabs of tape, leaving myself as much real estate in those glue seams as possible, or in those seams as possible, to put the glue in there. And then I had toyed with the idea of leaving the tops and the bottoms to dry and then wrestling together and doing this on the second day. But, and I'm glad that I didn't just put all of the pieces together dry and try to add glue. So it was good that I put the tops and the bottoms together and gave them a few hours. And then I came back and made them line up and added more glue to these outside horizontal seams, all while everything's a little bit soft. And also you could see me scrape and apply this. Now, you know, the power glue gun is cool. The power caulk gun is cool for this, but I'm using tubes that had a little bit left in each. I didn't have a fresh one. I couldn't cut the ends as small as I wanted because I had to cut them big enough to let the plug of the old dried glue out of it. So you want to cut it real small and turn the speed down real quick, slow, and you'd have less like waste. The way that I ended up doing it was juicing up the one of them with the gun, and then all the extra that came off of it I used on the other one, just applying it with like a spatula of some kind or a putty knife. And then for the most part, once you're done messing with it, you want to go away and leave it and don't bump it while you let the glue do its thing. It's nice and dry in here. It's a dry time of year. This stuff is nice and dry, and so tomorrow that ought to be put together well enough. I'll probably leave the tape on it, but then I can turn it over on a towel or something like that to kind of support that point and leave it to sit flat. And then I will use a fresh tube, so I got to get some tubes of glue, and we'll run a fatty bead along on the inside seam everywhere. Make sure this corner area is backfilled real nice because it'll probably get a little bit of shaping and sanding. And of course then, once that interior glue sets up, if I can get that done first thing tomorrow, then first thing Monday, I could probably get the tape off and add some more glue. It's just a series of steps here. And so it would have been best to do them all four if I was absolutely certain of what I was doing. I've never done this particular thing before. I've done all the different steps here, and I've worked with these materials and these glues and these kind of aspects, and I've done a lot of pattern making, but I've never done this. But next time I'll have done this, and next time I will whack it all out and do them all at the same time, so that one weight session on the glue and everything's ready to rock and roll. This will be the second session wait time for the interior glue, and then a third session after I pull off the tape on the outside and glue those areas. And then finally we can sand things up. So I'll probably do one of those glue ups along with the glue up of the next set of them, so that they're moving along right along together. Hopefully that wasn't too boring to listen to. Sometimes you got to think aloud, and I got this cardboard strip out and 1 8-foot sheet of that material. That was the one that we used last year, almost like a drop cloth. And so it had curled up from the paint that had been sprayed on it, this and that, but it was a perfect application for this. So this is about 3.5 with a 1/4 inch glue on either side. And I want about 1 inch wide tab. So you see me snap line at 6 and 1 inch in from each. I cut all the way through at 6. I cut just through the paper at those other 2 marks, which allowed me to bend this real nice. And then I put it around here. And this creates a substrate surface, which see the features on. If you put the tin foil on there, you'll have all those hot spot white lines, and those will jump out at you just as they're doing now with the cardboard. If I get the ram board on here, something smooth like tag board essentially, or a heavy paper, then you can put the tin foil on that, and that will be nice and smooth. And because we did a very careful job with the jigsaw, and we did a very careful job floating it with this, and another layer of some resistance, but also some flexibility, and the end result, the collateral surface, will be quite geometrically consistent, and then smooth and shiny. So this is the way we want to leverage the different substrate materials, so that in the end it's the same thing as subfloor and then underlayment, and then your finished flooring system. And I should have said framing first. Your floor is framing, and then your subfloor and your underlayment and your flooring system, and thereby you end up with quite a refined and smooth flat surface. Still leaving this long because I don't know about my wall thickness. We got this color here for the finished woodwork in the Wormwood's home, and my helper got the soffit up. He used some beadboard, which gives it that geometry, those features. I gotta route it to trim it up and stuff. I gotta get some of this other lumber sprayed down that dingy color and do all of that before. Now this we don't have to worry about, but this has got the wallpaper, so she's so excited to put it up, and I get it. But we got that to paint, and while I'm spraying that up, I'll spray the back of the piece that goes up on the ridge there. Oh, and we got a repair piece in here. That was nice. My helper got that in there, which is great. The trapdoor is about like it used to be. Oh, and Trunchbull's office. I got to do something with this desk eventually, but the colors of Gruncham Hall have gone up on those. Oh, and our fabric got re-sewn down so that it fits well on these, and we may just need one magnet to coordinate the two color sides at the bottom so they don't get walked around from one side to the other. And we were looking at like a cravat kind of stripe. We're trying not to look like a circus tent, so you got to be careful, and we did some sketches to see what it would be like, and she's got the colors on here to have like that type of stripe on the wallpaper essentially. And then we've got some 1/4-inch gold tape, like pinstriping tape, that will pull out a little ways in. I don't know whether it'll be on the red or on the blue, and make, in the end, it should look like kind of a bougie wallpaper. But then I'm going to darken, or I'm going to water down this tone and use a texture roller, and probably just on the wallpaper areas, and we'll do more of a dry brush to create a wood effect down here. But I'm going to dinge down the wallpaper areas with what amounts to like a blotchy wash, which I hope ties those in with this tone. It just makes the whole place look sort of old and dusty instead of being crisp and fresh. You know, crisp, fresh paint job is hard to disguise. The edges of these pieces will be blacked out, so we're just, you know, chugging along. And even the fourth one hasn't started except for the skin I made it over there. So I got a fourth one to frame up. I got to trip through this box real quick. So I got all kinds of stuff I got to do. We got a bottom for this circulation desk started. It's split, I guess, but it's a little bit big. I just hate how this thing is built because it really isn't anything. It's just a stick in the corner to return the luan, and then some pieces to space this out. Oh, because after the luan box, then there was corner molding like that, and then you want baseboard, but I wanted it to be more like a, you know, bring that out even more. So just been polishing and polishing and polishing this turd. Now I want to bottom in it with wheels because it's just unhandy to move it. And so, I mean, at this point, it's like, may as well put wheels in this freaking thing. Although it's got these church shapes. I could pop those out one day, but it'll be the finish will, you know, give that shape to it as well. Anyway, got some chairs and some other stuff need to be glued. There's always stuff that, you know, we intend to use, but it's a little bit broken, so I'll fix it all up. And I'm thinking about bringing branches in on a bar when we go out to the playground. I got some playground equipment type stuff. We're going to use some Tractor Supply. You'll see what we end up trying to do to make for as expensive as it is, it's the cheapest way to make what looks like jungle gym or something like that for the playground area, which we bring the trees in. And like I say, branches to make it feel like we're outside. But I have had enough for today. And I got to check in on wifey. And then I'm going to be back tomorrow. So, all right, catch you then. Well, since we're pivoting that set, the TV on the coffee table and the chair that the brother is sitting in, whether he's in it or not, have to pivot with and come back. And that creates a problem for us. However, I think what I'm going to do is build a low-slung scooter along the lines of the base to the rolling trees that I built last year. So if you want to see the inspiration for a lot of this, you can check that series out. It's a playlist on my channel. But another thing we had from last year is this double layer, which was 4 sheets of plywood glued up, like a pair like that and a pair like that I made a circle out of. Yeah, this was the base to the tower piece for Shrek. And the benefit of this circle is that not only is it twice double thick, so the deflection amount that it'll do is half what a single sheet will do. But of course, a single sheet, the smallest aspect is 4 feet. And I'm going to make basically a quarter of a pizza, because the set has got the upper part and the stairs that come down, and we're going to fit it into that corner, park the chair in the corner looking out, and the table with the television on it pointed into the corner so that the light can be on the kid's face. I wanted something larger in that aspect than 4 feet, and so we've already got a pre-laminated and circular thing. I hope that I don't kick myself for cutting a piece out of it, but like when we rolled it down here, we couldn't throw it away. It was so much money. But I thought, it'll be a while until we need a circular base for something. Well, I need a quarter of it for this project, and then I really don't know what the rest of it's going to be useful as. I may end up just waiting around to make another sort of scooter. I don't love this solution because you're going to see it. It's going to be painted black, and I wish I could go bigger with a single sheet because all the thinner it is, the less obvious it is. I'll probably put a big old bevel on the leading edge of it to try and soften the shadow line that it makes. But I think in the pots that the caster wheels are in, they're going to have to stick up as well. So we may come up with like, I don't know, a pizza box or some laundry or something to lay there, just anything to sort of cover that up. Even though it's blacked out, it just kind of would look better if it was disguised. But I guess first things first, I got to get this thing out. Okay, Tech Rehearsal Act 1. My dad was kind enough to make me all of these components, framing components that I drew up here so that we can make the taller column for the gate, and I could put these column caps on them. I got to get the glue in the inside. This is where you can juice it up real good, which gives it structural integrity. And when you're doing this, you're relying on the glue that you put on the outside to maintain this thing's shape. And then once this is set up inside, I'll take the tape off on the outside and I'll likely touch those areas up. But really the glue on the outside is sort of a body filler more so at that point. See ya! And then the glue on the inside is like a big structural kind of weld. And thereby, between that and being in 3 dimensions here, we'll have a good amount of strength. Probably can't stand on it. Yeah, for sure can't stand on it. A child could stand on it. Anyway, they'll be fairly robust. And so they'll just be drying for today, because today's Act 1 Tech. My mother did all of the black lines for us up here. Well, quite a few of them. And that's looking great. And she also got this painted out for me too. And she painted over here the other side of on the library door jamming it, straight jamming it. And that's cool. And so you may have noticed that circle, I put the chair and the table on it, and it's essentially going to be required. It's going to be necessary. I forget that, despite the fact that you can only get a 4-foot radius quarter of a circle out of a sheet of plywood, you can only get a 4-foot radius part of a circle out of a sheet of plywood. And despite the fact that this is 4 sheets of plywood and it's a 7-foot diameter, it's only a 3.5-foot radius on this circle, and it's obvious that we need most of it, if not all of it, for the chair and the table. But you'll notice it looks like a big circular rug. And so I think we're going to lean into that. I'm going to put the 3 pots under it, probably one in the middle front under the table to be low key, rather than playing 2 out front. And then, because it'd be neat to put the one under a chair that you'd never see. Although, you know what? It makes a good point. I was thinking about the weight and weight distribution of the kid that's in the chair being additional to this. See, the trees don't have that much weight, but it's going to be in the bottom of these pans where we land the caster, And so I was standing on those scooters and skating around on them with my body weight when I built those, so I'm fairly certain that we're not going to have a problem here unless we get to leaping and jumping on this, which we have pretty good kids, and that shouldn't be a problem. But I'm torn on whether to put one caster under the chair and the two out here, or vice versa, one under the table and the two to either side of the chair. In the end, I'll put a big bevel on this, and we'll likely paint it to look like an area rug, and we might even buy some fringe and start it so that it just comes down and tickles the floor. And in the end, it ought to hopefully look like just a thick area rug that you don't really pay much attention to. But it'll help make this a louder living room. I can even put a lamp on it and leave it on it, and we can put the television lights and stuff. The television could sit here. I may go through the table with the cord, but I'm going to use my top off Milwaukee battery top off pack, because we've got I don't know where it is, but the lights that we're going to use for the television light playing on the kid's face are USB, which plug into that top off. And I don't know if I mentioned that we're doing a big flat screen TV with that we're going to subdivide to look like all of the closed circuit TV screens at Cruncham Hall in Trunchbull's office. So we've got that TV to run also, so we can do live on live. And that may or may not work with the top off, I'm not sure. So we're going to do a flat screen, and I'm going to make a Photoshop document of a bunch of CCTV screens, probably 3 or 4 tall by whatever. And then we're going to try to lay out a piece of Luan with the bubble, like the chubby square shape of a CRT screen, and have that laser cut so that the image behind the plate with all the CRT shapes make it look like a bunch of CRT televisions, as well as the slightly different colors. And then I'm going to have to go back to give it some depth with some cardboard or something else like that. We might probably go up on the wall with it, but it's supposed to look like a big group of, like I say, CRT screens, because of that's even pushing it into the slightly fantastic, given the era that the story takes place in. But in that case, and in the case of the TV light, we need that battery top off. And I'm also going to try to roll this camera, my phone, because I had trouble last year getting good footage. I'm going to put my tripod in a seat that I pay for and put the phone on it with a top off and do time lapse of at least one of the shows, if not a couple different shows, so I get a couple angles. I'm going to try and show you guys how stuff looks under lights with students and in set changing. And it's going to be a first. I've always wanted to get some kind of footage of the final scenario. I get photos after the show, but it's just me, myself, and I pulling the set around and asking for some simple lighting because I can't run the board. And I always get good photos of the set, but it's never everything that we built here. You know, the movement of things and the transitions, and with the players in front of it, the talent, the students, it makes a difference when you fill the stage with a dance number and the lighting that's a part and parcel of the scene. So hopefully we get some of that this year, but for that to happen, I got to shut up and get back to work. Okay, well, the fact of the matter is it doesn't matter where we put the furniture later. Right now we could put 3 wheels on these 60-degree marks that are already on this piece, which is freaking awesome. How to pick the distance from the outside. I don't want to, it's weakening technically, but it's not really a concern. Part of me doesn't want this really near to the leading edge of this thing, because the further inboard, the more distracting whatever's happening out here can be. However, we continue to minimize and make tippy out here. It's already going to be relatively tippy. Between these 2 points of contact, this is going to want to tip on us. And so it's going to be important that nobody come and go from this piece unless they do so. Because the thing of it is, the chair is going to be between those 2 points, and it may tip this front up. So we may have to put a chair over a wheel, putting these 2 things on either side, so the coffee table's here, but essentially then the walk lane between the chair and the coffee table, here to there, is going to be tippy unless you step deliberately into this sort of area. Although, you know what? It's going to be so heavy. This thing weighs probably over 100 pounds. I don't think it's 2. Man, that might be 200 pounds. So it may work to our advantage, and you may be able to step without lifting the other side, which could be cool. We'll have to see. And to put our best foot forward, it's going to be the widest sort of spread. So I really would never go any smaller than 2 inches. In fact, that may be, man, I hate these types of decisions, because once I cut a hole, it's in there. I'm inclined to move it in some. I wanted to do 4, and I'm looking at 2, which would completely work. I might go to 3 in a case like this as a compromise. Anyway, I'll make up my mind and then I'll get started. Okay, if we make this look like a rug, I think it's going to work. It's going to roll. I'll probably just I'll trace the legs and drill through the first layer of plywood so they kind of register and lock in. And hopefully we can push it that way. And I don't need to go any farther than that, hopefully. Worst case scenario, I can also then, I'll use the pilot point of that spade bit will have a center hole. And if it's not enough to stay down in the opening, I can fully drill through that. And when I turn this thing, it'll be tough. But, oh no, I could hang it out over the trapdoor and screw up into the bottom of the legs of these pieces of furniture without pre-drill them if I have to, so I don't damage them. But in one case or another, we'll attach that furniture, and then we'll just have to create a quick and easy way to attach it to these 2 points of this set. I thought about magnets, but you really can't, you don't get a lot of leverage on this thing. You don't want anybody pulling on it laterally. You'll have this table broken because it's cheap junk. So, but it does have to stay. The best thing to do would be to have something, just one string, something of finite length that you take from the back of this thing and pull toward the corner, pulling it tightly in these 2 points. So I got to think about that. But for now, I got the lights on it. And it's got electric eye face, or a little eye there, so we can use that for now. But I don't think, it's not like he would have had a remote, and is a younger kid, so I don't want to necessarily burden him with turning this thing on or off. The worst case scenario, we could put it on the arm of the chair and sort of disguise it and sort of block off the rest of the buttons besides on and off. And you can't get too far away. Like that's off, that's on, that's off, but it's not going off. So maybe like 6 or 8 feet at the most from that thing. So worst case scenario, we may have to give control to the kids that are in this piece. And in fact, maybe have to give them an access hole and they can reach out and hook this thing. Because the problem with the chair being in the corner, we got to latch the stairs on, and then this thing needs to roll in. But I could give them something from inside where they could reach out and just hook this piece and a little hole. I was thinking about making a feature, like I've got a cold air return grill cover, and I was thinking about, you wouldn't put it up high. I was trying to find something that would be in a sight line, and you know, even this, like perforating this or something, I'm not sure, but I wanted basically from inside to be able to see out for that move where we pivot the set. And so I've got some thinking to do about what to give the kids in this set piece. Maybe they'll attach this piece here and turn the TV lights on and off. So, because they'll have a nice clean line of sight there, and they'll be able to time everything and whatever. So anyway, we're at this point now, which is good enough for tech, and better keep her moving. Okay, well, we didn't end up having to trim these edges on these. I ended up with a flat bar and just coaxed them past, and they, in fact, slid down and on. It's still got kind of a big gap, and the long aspect is too long. The short aspect was a tiny bit too short, but they're on there, and that's all the more that we needed them to be, so that's fine. The uppers, when we purpose-built these, they ended up with an appropriate amount of tolerance or whatever around, so they're fine, and so they're up and running. Then we got to have that web. And so I looked at what made sense. I looked at the CAD model. I didn't end up bringing myself a drawing, but I just wanted to knock these out today. So around about yay and around about yay and etc. I come up with about 30 to 66. 60 and then another half of a foot. I started with 60. I wanted to go up another, which is 50 or is 5 feet. So I wanted to go up a half. Anyway, 66 inches to 30. But of course, that's 96 overall. I didn't realize that until I started to lay this out, because I'm going to put 2 sheets together and make them flush and make 2 of the pieces on one end, 2 of the pieces on the other. But of course, if I go to 66 out of 96, I'm left with 30, and vice versa. I go to 66, I'm left with 30. So I made those marks, snapped a line between them, which was ironically 60 inches long. So I went to 30 inches on that line and made a mark. And I went to 12 inches. Actually, I just laid my speed at that mark and lined it up and went to the tip of it in both these cases. And then Chris and I just bent a piece of Luan from that line through up my mark here and back, and so that'll make for very little waste. It'll make for an interesting shape, piece that we may use, or 2 of them matched pieces we could do something else with. Sometimes it even finds its way, something like this finds its way into the project, and it ends up being really cool. Although, you know what I just realized, it's not 48 inches, it's 42. We've got a 42 in there. So before I do this and kick myself, I've got to throw the line at 42 and then redo this thing just a bit more snug. And then we can, see, don't outsmart yourself. You want to stop and think. So that's going to be an important step. We'll do that much, and then I'll cut these pieces. And then Chris has got the blocks already waiting to put between them. Meanwhile, he's putting the skin on our last sleeve for the rolling steel frames. This was the one that I built from scratch without books on either side of it. There's this will get a new skin one side. The other side will be those books. This has new skin both sides. And then I got 1x8 pre-prime, and I'm using that for baseboard. It's true 3/4 of an inch, so we're going to have a lip there to catch some light. And then I might have used 1/2 inch plywood to create this wainscot, so that you have the shadow lines happening here. It's actually a judge's panel, but it's lighter than plywood, and it might be a touch cheaper. 1/2 inch to 1/2 inch sheets. I think this is $20, and plywood might be 25 or something in that thickness for something that you have to have a nicer finish quality. That'll be the rub, because the 1/2 inch plywood that I've got over here, it's not the end of the world. Sometimes the quality, you could paint that and it would work, but it is too bad that it has so many knots in it. So anyway, it would add a lot of weight to that, so we went with foam there, ripped a 2x4 at an angle for the chair rail on that, and that is actually really, really light. Something I mentioned to Chris was that we kept the books on those sheets. I may have said earlier in the video series, but those are real Luan. I call this stuff Luan, but this is like underlayment, especially that stuff there. Super spongy and lightweight. That's real Luan, and you can tell when you start picking these up, they're massively heavy for what they are. We've got, 3 or 4 full 2x4s, 3 or 4 full 1x4s, and 2 full sheets of real Luan practically by the end of it. It's a sizable amount. They probably weigh between 50 and 100 pounds somewhere, maybe around 50, 60 pounds. So, with the steel in there, absolutely over 100 pounds. So that we certainly don't move them with if the steel's in there, we're rolling them, right? Unless we're loading or unloading the steel part. But even without the steel in there, the sleeve itself is quite weighty, quite heavy. And with all the book modifications and stuff we had to do, by the time we get down to the end of this thing, I probably would have been better off removing the books from that Luan and putting underlayment on new sleeves fully and reapplying the shelving face frame, and then finally putting the books on in the right place. But we only know that when we're all done. So we're here getting this much done. I'm gonna keep her moving. Well, these gates for Crunch'em Hall came together pretty smoothly, and the quality is pretty rough up close, but I think the major forms are looking good, square, plumb. This surface looks pretty good. The ram board makes a nice, relatively smooth way to do that type of a thing. I got this camel or like tan tone. This was the darker of the two colors used to do I think it was the first color that went down for the lath. Then there's this lighter color. So I went with a darker tone here as a base coat. I'm going to finish and spray those up before I leave today. I've also got to I'm going to get the other gate around and get it squared up and glued up the way this one was from a week ago or more. Now, because I've got that stick in the center of every side of these pillars going forward, it'll be easy to attach to the center line of this piece, and this year will be no different. We'll be able to get a hold of that some way, somehow, to get that gate to stand off of the tall side on both. We've got some crests for Crunch'em Hall coming together. It allows us to get the positive letter shapes and negatives, the overall crest shape. This, I think, is going to go above Trunchbull's desk, which is what's coming together over here. We got some, miscellaneous vintage tech type stuff happening. I got the image kind of happening, and I laid out in CAD. We can look at that. I think I did 3 courses of 6 8x8 pictures, CCTV like screen pictures, and so it'll adjust a little bit to this exact screen size, but in general the images should play out to be behind and well framed by the fascia piece that we're going to laser cut, the way we did the letters for where we did those crests. We're also that's a 2x2 square crest. We did one that fits on a 1x1 to put them on the center top of each of these columns. Honey's house needed a chimney, and so I got started with that 3/4 inch pack of EPS foam. It was $10, and it created enough brick for this. Probably enough brick to do this much twice, which I was heartened by. So that's good. We did I did some math and made the L-shaped pieces first for the corners, and so then they're 2 different lengths, but when they come in and stop, if you're spacing it with a plywood sheet, then all you have to do is float either 1 or 2 bricks between where they stop, and you end up with what looks, for the most part, like a reasonable job of putting real brick up. And it went around the corner enough, so I think I'm going to shade by carefully spraying black with this against the floor or up in the air to just push the red in a gradient to black so it looks like it disappears into shadow. And then I'll trace where it sits on the wall, and we'll paint black, but not faded, not with spray. So it'll be like broken edges of lath that comes in, some of it more tightly, a few of it broken back, and I have to put some more holes and different things to add texture, but we're not going to bother with doing it until we know what all we will actually see and won't see. So that's still coming in, the fake nail holes and all of that I want to hope to get to. Probably do that stuff after I put the paper up as the remaining plaster, and then we finally see the windows through which we see where there's brick and where there's lath, and we can do a little detail work on those areas for right now. And that way we don't it seems wasteful to put all this down, but this went relatively quickly. A little bit of detail stuff we'll hold off until we know right where we're going to see it through. And this is the campfire left over from Shrek from last year. We did cut it in half. It was built on a sauna tube, and it had my Milwaukee fan blowing the tissue paper around last year, and we've got some lights I'll show you that have a fire effect that glow behind the tissue paper, and that's, I think, all we're going to use this year because it's already half as wide as it used to be. The living room's coming together. I got some tassel. I think I'm going to put a big router pass with a big bevel on this piece to break the edge, and then I'll start the tassel on it to where it just comes down and tickles the floor just maybe a little bit. We've been asking students to stay off of it because that span is still pretty flexible and bouncy, which is too bad to some degree. I mean, it's cool for what it is, but walking on it collaterally shakes a lot of the stuff above, which in the future I might cut in 3 more wheels. And I left those unglued so they can be taken out, used to do something else with or whatever. So if we end up using this as a truck in the future, probably could put 3 more wheels underneath it. And depending on how you use it, it should hopefully have far less collateral movement, and we could even put one in the middle too. So it would be pretty bumpy, but you'd be surprised that since you don't catch that angle from the house, it works out to look, pretty flat and smooth from the house. Speaking of the house, the library. I got the laser set up, you may have seen. I got a baseboard up. I got to get some baseboard to come around the corner here. This is going to be left a little bit long. Baseboard here. Now it's going to come up onto the trapdoor a tiny bit, but that's fine. I'll just trim the trapdoor a little higher so that it itself swings over the baseboard. But as you can see then, the baseboard will make a nice hide for the lower horizontal lip at the top, or at the bottom. The chair rail will be here. The framework for the wainscot that comes around the corner will somehow be on this, and you'll see how I do that. And in the end, you won't even know that there's anything there, hopefully. And we got to do a piece of baseboard here. We got ram board ready to go on this, which will make it like even more smooth. And we got the tinfoil tape. We got the 3-inch styrofoam ordered. I did a little test here just to see. This was with the gripper primer, which does work to glue foam to itself or the foam to wood. However, it dries white, which is a bummer. So I just as soon use PVA glue for all of the water-based, commonly available properties that it has and the low cost. And in the end, it dries clear, which is far more helpful. So that's what we used over there with the white glue. And so that'll be notched around these components. Those will probably be blacked out. In the end, they'll stick out. Like the very tiniest little bit will stick out. And if it's blacked out and we put a bush or something there, you won't even know. The other thing I'm going to do is come over with a gutter and downspout. So perhaps I can put what looks like a larger piece with the transition from downspout to like underground drain and make it work out right there. So it looks like that goes right underground. But of course that disguises that bump out thing there. I'm going to get some cove molding for up here and paint it this chocolatey brown. So you get a designation between what's the old ass framing of this house and what's the finished like hardwood looking framing inside, or the finished lumber inside. I got a longer cord for the phone, so it's hilariously extremely long. I'm going to dip that in yellow because you can't get a yellow one that easily. And you can just paint these with latex paint and that's fine. And when that living room comes into this area, I think that I need to have a hole in the stage or in the set, and the kids that are pivoting this set also need to reach out and somehow hook and attach the living room so when we pivot it travels with, and then they can reach out from behind the chair and unattach it. My first thought was to put the like heating vent over and make the heating vent just flip out so they could just reach out and reach back. It's not worth using up the heating vent over there because then you'll always have it behind the chair and you never appreciate it. So since I'm gonna paint it gold, I'll probably put the heat vent below the phone, just to give the house a little bit of infrastructure. Maybe put an outlet in the wall. That would be fun. And put an outlet and have them plug the TV into it each time. But it gets to a point where I do have a cord on the TV and I would like to go somewhere with it, so maybe that makes sense. So there's that, and we got to put some foam pipe insulation on here as a handrail. Probably no newel post. It used to have that circular one, but then I think what I'll do is I'll take the handrail right down and just curve and die into the front of this baluster, which will be just fine. And we've got some faux end grain pieces that I glued up there and there to make sure that the anatomy of the construction sort of shapes and stuff is correct. We got to get the ceiling or the roof rolled black, and we'll get the shingles put up on top of it. And then I guess we could go and look in the classroom real quick. This flat is as far along as I've gotten so far with Crunch'em Hall. I've got the wainscot paneling, the baseboard, and a piece of chair rail out of a ripped 2x4. Some of that foam trim, and the window's already fallen out of there because I didn't secure it. Oh, here's some of that pipe insulation. I went and got this commercial kitchen cart, which looks better for the cake. And Carla's painting the edges black so that everything's looking real nice and finished. That looks like the right color. Yes, thank you. I'm dropping my tag on the floor. And here's where we built with the brick. And this, again, we've got plenty of leftovers. These pieces here will probably work to wrap the ones on Wormwood's house. As soon as I know whether they need to get any shorter, and then we can paint the edges of them red and get ready to put them up. Oh, and the lights for the fire are these cheap. Well, I bought them last year. I can't remember. I don't think they were super cheap. But I got 4 of them, and they go in there behind the tissue paper, and they have an effect like that reads actually pretty well. It's a couple different solid, glow, and that other one, which is probably the best one. And then some artwork to get framed. Oh, and all the costumes are obviously here. And then one more thing, we've got a bulletin board for the library. It's like this. I threw it in with a bunch of stuff I bought secondhand recently. But it's Ethan Allen, made in America, and I'll probably use it in my house when we're done. It's really nice and heavy. And since we're welcoming my firstborn here any day, we'll have to have a place to put all of the remarkable accomplishment evidence. But they got some great, busy, colorful legible kind of stuff up on here, which I love. It turned out great. We've got some older show posters and stuff up on there. There's little Easter eggs. So we're cooking with gas right now. Not that you should be cooking with gas in 2024. You should be thinking about moving over to electricity. Oh, and the boards Carla finished up more. Got a little farther than my mom did. We got some knot holes and stuff in there. I think we're going to load some books into this area here as like a little bookshelf for her, and we've got bedding and decorations. This needs some more gray, which she's getting the color out to do. But in general, we're coming down to final sort of little detail things, which certainly take plenty of time to accomplish and slow you down all the same. I put this on wheels, which allows us to get the circulation desk, where it needs to go. I'm hoping for a few more flyers here, some books, a stamp, some other stuff like that. And then we got all of Truncham's. These are must be all the same basketball trophy, but we got to get them all attached to just a thin piece of blacked out Luan and put them up on a shelf above her desk. And I think we're going to put, like I said, a crest above for her, because there wasn't room for the window after you went up with the camera, what looks like a bunch of cameras. This was actually the key cover from the old baby grand piano that was used for shows when I was here. And we tripped through it on stage for a long time until we got rid of it recently, and that was the only piece that left, or that stayed. So I thought it was fun to put it back on the stage. We got this one now. We're getting ready for the pit walls need to go up, but they've been sounding good. They did the sits probe the other day. The kids sang with the pit for the first time since they've been rehearsing separately for a while. But the door doesn't look fatigued. The hole's been working. They've been able to find it in the dark and stuff. So pretty soon we're going to start taking stuff down to the basement that we won't be needing. These are the panels I'm setting aside as I go for the wainscot in the library, as they're cut out of the Cruncham Hall panels. But that'll be tomorrow, the flat work. Today when I leave, I got to get that gold down. I'm going to get this base coat happening. And I'm going to get some more millwork here. Probably put the chair rail on. Do a few more things and just put them up. Because I've always got helpers trying to paint. So the more stuff I can put up for paint, the better. I got to come up with what my plan is to trim the top of this thing. I could always just use 2x4, but it just seems like it would be more fun to use a real trim profile with a highlight and a shadow body line happening on it. But you never know. The other thing I've done is I drilled in on this stud and installed some rare earth magnets. I'm going to maybe use some quick wood epoxy plumber putty to build. I over drilled a little bit, so I'm going to bring them back up to the surface. Then I got some thin sheet metal that I'm going to form to just be kind of a shape like that, so it can be opened and slid onto the Luan, but hopefully it ends up squeezing so tightly that it just stays on the edge, or most of the edge, and then just click, and it'll be held flush in that way. And then again, you can either push from inside or pull it with this little finger hole. And I'm going to make a surface in here. I better do that today. I keep telling myself before somebody gets their fingers rolled over, because they're trying to ride this thing and it's just not safe. So let's get on to doing that, I guess, and just keep her moving here. All right, well, I threw the bronze on all these components here so they can dry and people can move them out of their way tomorrow. And we got Trunchbull's office coming together. The trophies were all hot glued down to a piece of 3/4 inch plywood. So they're all together on that one shelf, but they can be taken down and what have you. Didn't have to go up there and do that up in place. The shelf is screwed into the true framing layout with full length framing screws, and we aren't tipping this piece forward or monkeying anything up or worried about its strength. In fact, it's tipped down a little bit only because of the physical aspect that sticks out a bit farther there, which is in the end why we start with fundamental construction, because it just continues to aid you in being quick and making things easy and not having to shore anything up. So it always pays dividends rather than trying to scab shit together unconventionally or with light duty sized pieces. I still hate this desk, but I'm learning to live with it. We got some miscellaneous tech stuff that will get sort of zhuzhed a little bit. These newer trophies are kind of dog shit. I don't know. She's got a pen set thing here. We'll have to see. We're going to do a crest up there. Honey's house. We got the brick in place for now. The white glue is drooling a little bit, and it's still wet, but that's good that we used it and got it up there, because then it can dry out and turn clear and invisible. Ideally, we'd rip and chunk all the brick edges and everything up, but then we'll have a hell of a time painting them without painting the grout. So we just got to be careful of our order of operations when we do the brick these next times. This time it went quite smoothly, but it could go more smoothly. It's just something I'm working on. I've been rolling it around, trying to make it really quick and easy, but in general it looks fairly good. We are going to do a big crinkled surface of paper where we just expose a few areas of the lath and the brick, and of course it all needs to be distressed and beaten up further, but it's shaping up. We've got a sad little sconce so she can indicate the light she reads by. I have an idea for a window hanging out in space over here so she can indicate the window that she could see out. We got a, like I say, the fire I was talking about before. The living room set could use a few more wheels under it, and we're getting some domage right here from the weight loading the foot of that caster, and so if there were twice as many wheels, there'd be half as much load there. I'd like for those to be shorter in the future, so I'm going to see if I can't find 8 by 2 inch cake pans and then go down to a 2 inch caster. And in the event that it can be 8 again, I'm going to get some steel plates cut so they could be put in on top of the caster plate to further fortify that scenario. And so I got to do a little bit of research and find out if I can have that, in which case I'll have more than 3 of those steel plates cut so that they're ready for later. I may even rush and try to get the shallower pan. You never know. Painting them sucks because they're non-stick, so that's another thing where if I could sandblast them first, that might help to cut whatever they put on the outside for non-stick material. But overall, that looks pretty sharp when you roll it up into their living room area. The library, we got the bulletin board up and got a bunch of different Easter egg and funny joke type things on there. Some of it doesn't suit the director just because it's from the wrong time. It's too recent, like Shrek wasn't a thing if this is supposed to be the 70s. So we got some stickler stuff where we might switch that around, but the essence of what I was hoping for is there. The window's going to be aligned like a sort of secular church situation with the window under the peak there. The panels are sitting over there that came out of the negative space from Crunch'em. The positive panels will be spread out along here and around the corner, and the door misses the baseboard, and there'll be a panel on it and stuff too to hide that. I put a surface in here for them to sit on so they can be safe, and made some clearance for them to pin it. Got the chair rail on here, which is just a ripped 2x4, but we'll get it right there. This will have to stay smooth, I think, so it can be covered with a piece of Luan that's just sort of painted to match with the crisp designation between the two lines at the very least. I don't think it's worth putting a poster on there because it doesn't quite point to the house. These have been left a little long till we find out how deep the brick is that goes on here, and then they'll be cut flush with probably the mortar, and then the brick will be proud of everything in that situation. And there'll be brick on the front of the gable too, and I gotta make a fake double hung window frame and a little sash bar for that. We got to get the rest of the wallpaper up, handle some of the edges that are fighting with us. That just gets brick stuck right on it, so I painted it the same color that I'm going to paint the foam for the grout. obviously wallpaper's got to go in there. I got some of this foam on here for a handrail to give our actors, mostly it's Matilda that uses the stairs, so make her comfortable and aware that that's going to be like that. And I've asked her, you don't really lay into this and wiggle it if you can help it. It betrays the whole illusion. And when you jump onto and off of the set too, you don't want to try not to shake it. You want to be light-footed, which she's doing well. We put some black holes and notches and stuff into the boards, which look good. And we got around the corner kind of going in there. The back of that triangle's laying here. I'm going to dry brush through that as well. This side of the piece never plays, so rather than black, we went with that bronze, which I think is a cool sort of trade-off. I got to put a triangle up there, painted flat black as well, and then we got a little bit of shingle up this edge of this roof, and a little bit of shingle up that edge and that edge of that roof, and maybe even across the top. No, I don't know what I want to do there. I may not. Actually, no shingle edges up and over that. It'll just be crown. It'll just be molding of some kind, not really crown technically. But yeah, we got my shop area and stuff fairly organized. Things put where they go. I got these blind covers, which you can illustrate outlets onto rather than having the missing holes in them, which is obvious. So we're going to paint these gold. So I've got this stuff to go up on the walls of Wormwood. I got the register cover that I painted gold. I'm going to paint the blind covers gold, like they have gold outlets. I got these switch covers that are like for your shitty old switches. Rather than just putting a new one in, you just change the face cover and then they slide. The thing is, it's flat on the back and it has what looks like switch geometry on it. And this was all on the clearance rack at Lowe's right now, so it was awesome. It was a couple bucks each, and I'll paint these gold too. I may use one gold outlet and one gold switch and the gold register cover in Wormwood, and leave an outlet and a switch white for the library. Not sure yet. The hardware for the door's got to get cleaned up, and I got to do some monkeying around with that door. I don't think we're gonna hang this swing. It was a funny idea when the schoolyard at Cruncham was like a shitty playground. But we have so many kids in this show. There's so much going on with dance and choreography. It's really not necessary. So all the downspout pieces, and we're going to put that color on to make it look like copper on the one eave underneath the dormer. These corbels that I built for Theory of Relativity, they're just profiled from plywood. They've got some blocks in them, and there's ram board on the edges and some pipe insulation, darted and contoured, and then like a dry brush. Oh, and then I put a iced tea. I think it's Gold Peak tea bottom of the bottle. I put into a hole saw hole with some construction adhesive. But these are be painted the yellowy wood from the library and used in the library set somewhere, I believe, in the doorway. But that mint color will be what we use on the downspout to make it look like kind of like the Statue of Liberty is like a patina on copper. What else? We got the shingles here, flattening under the weight. We got Reynolds wrap for doing windows. That actually works pretty good when you do that. And the flickering lamps, like I showed you for the fire. I tried cleat, like French cleat for the bulletin board, but I ended up just screwing it under the wall. I feel safer about that. This holds it vertically, but flapping all around, all we need to do is have that hit the floor and break or something. Or we don't really, is what I'm saying. So all the hardware for the doors got to get cleaned up a little bit. I'm sick of it getting painted. And little detail things. What we're going to probably make wrinkled butcher paper, assemble strips of it, because it's only 36 inches wide, a lot of times, or 48 or whatever. We'll get some. We'll make a piece that kind of fits around that hearth and like fold it to match the chimney angles and everything like that. Really harsh, and then bring it down and wad it all up and flatten it to give it sort of a wrinkly texture. In the way that we controlled it for vertical with the tree bark, we're going to try and make it wander all over, and then paint it on the drop cloth and keep it all wrinkly and let the paint bake that wrinkle and stuff texture in there and make it more rigid and dry it, and then tear big openings in it and put it back up and try to tease out and fluff up the edges of those openings and roll them around and make them a little bit more substantial or etc. And ultimately the look should be like plaster with texture, with busted out holes, exposing some lath and some brick and some other stuff. And we'll also maybe try to put I'm going to texture roll it with some sludge color. So I'll probably wait on, get it all to that point, and I'll make the sludge and drop, let it wring out and course down and shit all up the gates, and do it all to Honey's house kind of wallpaper, and anywhere else that I think that we need something like that. Probably on Cruncham, on the wallpaper for Cruncham perhaps. But Want to be smart at this point. I got a longer cord coming for the phone, which is funnier, and you can go farther away with it. We got a little bit of crown we got to go across the top. And like I say, those little detail components on the walls in here. Oh, I got a rubber ducky, kind of a simple rubber ducky print fabric that I think we're going to make a strip of wood with magnets and just put some steel there. I'm going to soffit this down and put a ceiling in here or whatever. But it'll have a rouge to it. It'll look like a shower curtain, like a rubber ducky shower curtain. And it'll just stick up. It'll be pre-rouged on the stick, and it'll just stick there. And then when the set turns and we look at her in what should be the Wormwood bathroom, there's quite clearly a classic bathroom kind of backdrop. And then it can just be pulled right down for when we turn this thing around to be the library. And what I think I'll do is I'll make a place for it to stick on this side or something, so it never goes far. You don't ever want to, even because in the past we've had quick change things like that, and the problem isn't that someone didn't remember, it's that when they remembered, they have to run way off stage in a blackout and come back with it. And once everybody runs out, she uses clear comm from the conductor position to cue lights back up again, and then you're shot. So it'll either stick here when it's Wormwood bathroom and be kind of seen through the doorway just a little bit, or when it's library, it'll have to come around and stick on this side. So you want to be smart with those types of quick change things. The back of this flat, there are 4 crunchums and 3 library books. So this is 1 crunchum, and these 3 are library books on that side, obviously, and facing down here. So that'll be crunchum eventually. So there's 4 crunchum panels, which means the unfinished surface facing out over there will be just blacked out for this year, and it's a free and available surface for finishing next year or whenever else we get those sleeve flat walls back out again. Honey's furniture for her little abode. We got a commercial. I went out and got a commercial kitchen cart. I'm going to keep this. I bought it. I'll take it back to the shop when we're done. But I feel like the cake looks better on it rather than the gold one that we've been using. This upstages the cake a little bit with these arms, especially that come up. So this is what he wheels the TV out and stares at and plays the ukulele, the little boy, when he as accompaniment to his dad singing all I know I learned from Telly. So the TV comes out on that cart, and the cake comes out on this cart. I think that's a good distinction. A lot of times you need a rolling cart in a show. It's the rolling cart you use throughout the show. Just changing between the two, I think, adds production value. Even though it seems smart to use the same one, there's something to be said for having the right style. So we stuck with that. I got some of these baby roses for Honey's mantle. I think there'll be some books on her set piece and stuff too, because of course she's got a lovely home full of books, and she likes to read and thinks she's even seen at the library at the beginning of the show. So our props table is pretty light this year. We only have a few. Normally it's 2 of these cafeteria tables and everything's densely, laid out on it. But this is the stuff that'll probably even end up having a magnet to help stick it to the shelf in the bathroom, potentially. Or it may just be necessary for that scene. They may not want it down there. We need to be able to pivot the set without being nervous that it's going to fall over, though. So you got that situation there that you want to be aware of. I wanted to bring branches in for the park too, but I just didn't get to that. We have almost nothing coming in on bars this year. Anyway, I feel like this has been on and on and on. My son will be born tomorrow, according to the doctor. Our scheduled C-section moved up from Thursday this week till Monday, which is, like I say, tomorrow. My wife's water broke like 10 days ago at 32 weeks, so the lovely Katie Merrill has been hanging out in the hospital for over a week, and I've been coming and going, long days on the set. All of our canceled wedding shower gifts have been showing up, and I'm tripping through those. The animals are going crazy because no one's around to do a very good job of taking care of them. I'm trying to keep it together. We're ahead of almost every other year. I don't know if it's because we've had a lot of help, because people know I'm struggling, or if I'm just getting better and better at this, trying to be wiser. But either way, we've got a full week. No, we got 5 days. Thursday's black, which is awesome. Again, another big work day where I haven't got to get out of anybody's way. And so I really think we'll be able to put some special touches. I want to put, this will all be trimmed and tinfoil and whatever for this window, but I want to make a sill on it, and I want to put some sort of shallow little plants there. I want to put some shells on either one or both ends of the rolling circulation desk, so I could put some big fern, frond things that they have at Lowe's right now coming up on either side of it. I want some, books and a big stamp and stuff like that on this desk. I just want the library to be full of life, because Cruncham's a shitty place and the Wormwood House is a shitty place. Even the park is a nice song, but we don't have any foliage or anything to bring in. So the library, I really think we need to see some what looks like either real plants or fake plants or whatever. Honey's house has got some cut flowers, which is a help. And I might even do some green, like some succulents, or because the thing about this is, as soon as you have the protection of this base sticking out, then we can put things like this out and they're not a danger of getting caught on stuff. Being additional to the surface of the library presents an issue because it's already fatter than it really needed to be. I could have kept the dormer off and kept it at 3 feet wide like we did for Adams. But anyway, having a plant hook or anything like that, which I'd really love to have a long trailing pothos hanging over that window coming down, it's just begging to be ripped off and broken or dumped out or whatever, which is just a shame. So I still want to get some greenery in here, and I think the library is the place to have it. That's that. Let's get my kid safely into the world and get my wife safely through that procedure. Her ankle's been twisted like crazy, super bad. She hasn't been able to walk. It's probably best that she's been in the hospital, because she kept trying to walk on it and work, and went to an air cast and then to a knee scooter, and then her water broke, and so now she's just been on bed rest. So I'm not going to have a lot of help with new baby, unfortunately, when he comes home, which is all right because the show will be over. But holy smokes, it has been a hell of a ride this year. Hopefully everything goes smoothly tomorrow and I don't have to worry here. I got everything kind of cleaned up for them, so nothing should need to be really dealt with. And I don't mind if they call me or ask me questions, but really I got to be there for my wife tomorrow and meet our son. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we're going to slam all the details and finish this thing out, make it look good. Clean this thing, get the Zamboni in here, get all the final spike marks and lines on the stage. The little kids couldn't figure out how to line up in a V on center stage, so we pulled out miles of spike tape, which I think that's like $100 worth of spike tape, at least 50. But anyway, they finally got they're able to figure that out. We'll probably leave those lines with how infrequently the little kids have been practicing the show, just enough to come out and dance around and go back. Hopefully it doesn't. I think it looks pretty good for what it is. I'm excited, and we're going to get some, like I say, time lapse of the whole thing, but I'm rambling and I'm just nervous. I got to go and come back again, see you shortly. You open your eyes? I didn't even know you could do it. What you doing? You're real tough. You looked at me. You looked. I seen it. There he is. Oh my gosh, what the heck? It hurts. Oh, you sweet boy.